Hey, this is Alex Head, founder of Subtext Radio.
This is Subtext.
Please go ahead and click the like button and the subscribe button. It really helps us to reach new audiences and promote the artists that we work with. Hit like and hit subscribe.
Had been the text he was after, and fates an accidental subtext. Subtext, 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 subtext.
Being outside at night, I was thinking about the process of memory at night, which is happening everywhere around you. People are sleeping. So everywhere around you, people are sleeping. You're kind of walking through this village. Everywhere around you, people are sleeping and their memories are being kind of picked, cleaned, combed. And like one's being deleted and some are being deleted and some are being kept, and then you can't help kind of feeling that something's happening around you, although nothing's happening. So it's quite funny, there's a parallel between what we're trying to record something, and there was nothing there really to record. I think the memories kind of evaporating. out of people into the surrounding kind of silence. It's quite nice.
And I was thinking about the idea of the midnight oil coming from this quite sort of romantic idea of like the lone artist working too hard, basically, right? And I was thinking about the way that, you know, the paradigm now is more to do with sort of collectives and institutions. You know, okay, we want to invite collectives to expand to their collectives, and there's more collectives, and then it gets to like someone like us. And I started thinking about, like, because we were talking a bit about memory as well. So I was thinking about the midnight oil and individual artists, and then that shift to being an institution, and then the difference between kind of an individual's memory and an institutional memory, if you can talk about such a thing. Because the whole thing with non-sleep, in a way, it also raises that question of, you know, if you don't sleep, then when do you process your thoughts to become memories? And if you're an institution, how do you do that kind of the generation of memory? I guess it's whether or not you're interested in separating out your interpretations of things from other people's interpretations of things, or not, or whether you just want to stick with your own impression and your own selective process. You know, like we have our experiences, we have our memories, and yet, like, the personalities come to reproduce the similar sort of situations. And I think one of the things of institutions is that they also become, after a long period of time, you start to sort of see them a little bit as a series of personalities, which are like governing this thing. So I don't think it's about sort of saying that, you know, the institution cannot, you know, is always, or the individual is like doomed to repeat the same mistakes or anything, but it's just kind of interesting to think about what studying the idea of sleeplessness could maybe offer to an institution, which, as it were, never sleeps. Right, it never goes through that process. because I think now is a time when institutions are really burning the midnight oil, because like health institutions, art institutions, kind of all schools, all institutions in a way are like working really hard to try and work out how to deal with the situation. And so, I think that's maybe part of maybe what brings the work into like this particular moment in time. It's also taking the labour politics in a little bit, and sort of that idea. I sent you that quote of this French writer Flaubert was working late so regularly that they could, the oarsmen on the Seine or in Paris the river, he was working so regularly at night that they could use his lamp to navigate. But if you take like the modern kind of conversation around precarious labour, it's not really the midnight oil, it's just like people working every hour of the day to try and make it productive, like to try and make ends meet. So in a way, the romance of the midnight oil is somewhat lost on our generation.
Slugs with dreams, a faint whisper contrast our screens. I've seen how it should be, chasing visions, butterflies and tunnel teens. Nostalgia outlined by the 90s. What I wanna say is past, painting with my skill, I don't agree. Skill lacks naivety, and so I sharpen my pencil with alternative means. A blunt line that lacks rhyme but illustrates a feeling. I look at hip-hop as a sea, cause these five men are wanderers, and we drowning cause we choose to. Losing the genre, invert the surface like nerd hop. What's said but doesn't mean, a line that seems to make more sense when said, like graffiti scene. Freestyling badly, a play not judged by speed. Direction should free, lines that look as good as they feel. The eye and the C, the knee and the shin bone. Break dance, dance sled, and the slug trails the sign I write. All slugs trailing with dreams. All that.
Okay, so I'm reading from a book called Chasing the Sun, The New Science of Sunlight and How It Shapes Our Bodies and Minds by Linda Geddes. So among sleep scientists, there is a growing consensus that getting enough sleep is fundamental to our ability to learn, find solutions to problems and regulate our emotions. She goes on to say, humans sleep in 90-minute cycles, and the precise purpose of sleep is still a subject of intense study. But one key function of the NREM sleep seems to be weeding out unnecessary connections between brain cells, while REM sleep is believed to strengthen those connections. She goes on to talk about a guy called Matthew Walker who wrote a book, Why We Sleep, a neuroscientist. And so in his book,
My toes are super wet. They're all just like bathed in dew.
Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker likens the interplay between these sleep states to creating a sculpture out of clay. You start out with an unwieldy lump of raw material equivalent to the mass of old and new memories that the brain has to work with each night. During the first half of the night, NREM sleep excavates and removes large amounts of superfluous material, while short bouts of REM sleep smooth and mould the basic shape. Then during the second half of the night, REM sleep strengthens and defines these basic features. Okay, and she concludes, it is through this process that our memories are sculpted and archived. Sleep helps to consolidate newly acquired memories.
So, for example, when people leave institutions, then you lose that continuity, and you get a gap in the memory. You get like a amnesia, like an institutional amnesia, like a blackout of some kind. I mean, what does an institution do then at that point? Like, what can it do?
I mean, that's the problem, because really it's a machine, isn't it? An institution. And the machine can never have that intuitive kind of way of avoiding mistakes. It works on facts. And before it reaches a stage of enlightenment, thousands of combinations of mistakes that have to be repeated before it can learn, which a person doesn't do, doesn't it? You kind of have that process of eliminating the unnecessary things. Your body knows how to delete them straight away at night.
Brooding at the end of the world on my island of Sal in the company of my prancing dogs, I remember that month of January in Tokyo. Or rather, I remember the images I filmed of the month of January in Tokyo. They have substituted themselves for my memory. They are my memory. I wonder how people remember things who don't film, don't photograph, don't tape. How has mankind managed to remember? I know, it wrote the Bible. The new Bible will be an eternal magnetic tape of a time that will have to reread itself constantly, just to know it existed. As we await the year 4001 and its total recall, that's what the oracles we take out of their long hexagonal boxes at New Year may offer us. A little more power over that memory that runs from camp to camp, like Joan of Arc. That a shortwave announcement from Hong Kong radio picked up on a Cape Verde island projects to Tokyo, and that the memory of a precise color in the street bounces back on another country, another distance, another music, endlessly.
So the story is a guy who worked in a video shop, and he had a memory of a film which he saw when he was working at the video shop. And he remembers giving this video, renting the video out and watching the video, and then one day he tried to find the film, and he realised that he couldn't find it. Nowhere, he couldn't find it, and he couldn't find any records of the film, and then he couldn't find tried to look through the back catalogue of the video shop and you couldn't find it. But he knew everything. He knew what it was called. The theme tune was, like, the actors. And then he kind of, the internet kind of started, so he kind of put it out there, and some people started replying to tell him that they also remember this film. And there ended up being like a big group of people who actually remember the film, but no one could find the film. And the reason why it's called the Nelson Mandela effect is that it turns out that this also happened with Nelson Mandela, where Nelson Mandela is this big kind of group of people who believe that he died, remember him dying and his funeral years before he actually did die, and they're certain that they watched it on TV, that they saw it, that it's real, but it's not real because he died like 10 years after that. It's collective mismemory or collective false memory. I think it was people like from the Anglo-Saxon world, from what it's documented.
So no one from South Africa, for example?
No, I don't think so.
How long do they basically come to realise that they are having a shared hallucination through the internet? Or?
Well, they don't want to believe it because they're so sure it's real. They're so sure that they've lived it that they can't accept that it's not real. And because there's more of them as well, and there's more people who believe it. But
you're sitting in your studio and there's all these kind of images and they're all very layered, even though they're quite minimal, some of them. There's a real sense that, there's like a lot of impressions going on.
yeah, it's I've become, for a while, for a long time, I've been interested in because memory turns out to be such a hard thing to kind of capture or like represent. I've become interested in the outlines as not necessarily specific memories, but like the outline as being kind of representative of memory.
What happens when there's no rest period, when there's no sleep?
You become an institution.
You become an institution, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking a little bit like, is an institution just an expression of time?
It is an expression of time. I feel that like again back to the teacher, this thing with the school, I realised that, for instance, when I first came there, I was like kind of, they gave me kind of what I wanted, they let me have all this kind of thing, I was like kind of treated kind of like I was wanted there. And then slowly over time, I've just become part of the institution.
Yeah, but then that's also interesting, that's also exciting in a way, insofar as that you could then, if you took that argument to like something like marriage, or anything else, as a social standard and expectation. If there are people who do it differently, people who don't sleep at night, or people who can't sleep and stuff, it also kind of like can lead you down that line of being like, well, what are these institutions anyway? And how do they come to have the kind of power that they have now? Because our experience, I think, is mostly with institutions that are fairly peripheral, really. They're cultural institutions of one kind or another, or they're educational institutions. But the institutions which are really firmly established, that don't get that type of critique and aren't interested in that type of self-critique are the ones that really have power, like the church, the state. I mean, the state, of course, goes through lots of cycles of questioning, and maybe that's what will happen now as well. Just because everyone having to slow down, everyone having to isolate, everyone having to stop business as usual. Like, don't you feel in a way it has given you more time to reflect, right, and to think, and to maybe do that process that happens when you sleep. I guess you were saying that you started off from like very specific images, in any case, specific experiences, and then you kind of push the logic of it until you get to a place of abstraction. But do you not find that once you've got to the place of abstraction that certain rules start to emerge as well?
That's what you're kind of like always hoping for.
Because you want to understand it as a process, you want to understand it as an experience, as a process.
And as a phenomenon.
And then when you get there, it's like, well, why continue? That's the problem, isn't it? Once you've got to that point, it always begs the question of why keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, if you take that argument and you apply it to an institution, that poses a pretty big problem for an institution, which it doesn't pose for an artist, for an individual artist, which is that as an individual artist, you can kind of, you can just stop and say, that's fine, I've done that now, I'm not doing it. Whereas for an institution, you build up a huge amount of expectation. I mean, in a way, for an artist, it's the same, but I think there's interesting differences between the two. It's much harder for an institution to write to its funding body and say, hey, look, we want you to keep supporting us, but actually we've decided we're doing this now. And it's like, whoa, what's the process here? Where's been the formal checks and balances to say that that's okay? Well, maybe we're not going to give you the money next year. Maybe we will, but you don't know.
There was this woman there was some depression, like these cycles of depression that she fell into. And they basically like did some experiments where whenever she felt that she was falling into it, they said, okay, force yourself to be awake. Force yourself not to go to sleep. So she'd basically like do all these things to not go to sleep and probably like try and stay up all night. And they found that it really helped. That it kind of reversed this kind of fall into this depression, because your body naturally starts creating these chemicals, to keep you up, and that helped her to fight back the depression.
Gum on concrete grassland, Traversed water pipe flows mingle with builder sand. Still erupting roots show meanders down brick lane. Concrete dislodged by underground tree pane. Structures that have witnessed Londinium of old and new, towering like tower blocks, these zen-like spots of scattered time machines. Let's listen to trees communicate when late night walking, lean midnight skies camouflaged by forever burning flames. The light around burns so bright, surrounding like canvas frames and lanes stamped away by elephant brigades. A closed circuit cam guards forest people. These owls have had their day. A word of silence moves us through this concrete land. A mole once useless now pulls and fires our underground rubber band. In demand, our parking spots with more lines to decipher than tube maps. We're tracking tracks of fallen conquer buds. We're tracking tracks of fallen cockney thugs. Floods crack grounds and mirror constellations above. Graffiti strokes mirror simple beauty in people like white doves. If I was the streets, I'd be parking meters, cause I play display and have to rap for at least an hour. Throw your change and I'll move like a street performer, performing tricks and living on change, and switching like alcohol rage. Switching like alcohol rage. Now turn the page. Now turn the page. Now turn the page. Now turn the page. Now turn.